Welcome back to the Eric Krown Crypto channel. Wishing you a happy healthy start to this nice Friday as we wrap up this week, a somewhat big week, you might say, and we head into the next week. So I wanted to really focus on the higher term time frame analysis so that we can kind of come up with an idea of what to expect from a probabilistical standpoint for the next couple of weeks into the end of September, maybe even into October as well. So with all of that in mind, I want to, yes, once again, subtly show my good old Instagram. I've been posting a lot of trading and Bitcoin related content there, or crypto related content, whatever the hell you want to call it. And there is a link in the description below. Other than that, let's jump right on into it, baby. And so starting off right in over here with the monthly look. So I haven't brought this chart out for like a week or so now, but I wanted to once again revisit it as we do set the tone for essentially the rest of the month of September and kind of catch up on this essentially. So in this case, we have observed in September for Bitcoin and, really realistically all traditional markets, it is actually the worst month pound for pound if you're just talking about in terms of average drawdown for the month of September coming in from the closure of August. So when we do analysis size, good old Bitcoin, we can see that 9 out of the overall 13 September, so all 13 September is prior to this one, have been down, which is 69%. Nice. Anyways, 2 of the remaining non-down months were basically just sideways, closed unchanged, and then there was only 2 months that actually did close decently up, I would say, from the open. So overall, the average downside move from August close to the wick low of September, so not the closing low of September, but the wick low of September was 21.17%. And if we were to do an analysis of the first standard deviation, it would imply a range between about 13.43% all the way up to just under 29%. So thus far from August close to where Bitcoin has currently put in a wick low for the month of September, which is 18,500 or so, is almost a 10% move. And that I would say is, starting to get within the realm of reason for reaching the first standard deviation. If we were to go all the way for the 13.5% move, however, that would put Bitcoin, let me just get my drawing tool out, basically at around the current, a little bit lower than that. Yeah, basically around the current lows that we did observe in June. So, another retest of those, that would be about the same thing, about $17,500. If we were to go all the way for the average, which again, we're just talking about wick lows, we're not talking about closures, although it can't close that low, obviously, but we're just measuring kind of like the average of what we would expect in the worst case scenario, essentially. And 21% would put Bitcoin at around about $16,000, $15,500, which I do think is relevant if Bitcoin loses its current low at $17,500 or even $18,000 on a higher term time frame closure, like nothing less than a daily in this case. So that kind of is at what's at stake for the next couple weeks here as we get into the meat of September. Actually, we're literally 2 weeks away from the end of September. Then it's the 30th. Sweet. All right, so I wanted to start off the analysis with that, just kind of get an overall, overview of the higher term time frame analysis, and then move into a relatively low term time frame, which is going to be the 2-day time frame, which is closing tonight at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, I do believe, or in 13 hours, 29 minutes, and 4 seconds and counting. Again, specific to CME. And yes, there is still hidden bearish divergence potential over here. 1, 2, 3 drives coming in from the last few highs, from June highs, not July highs, but August highs, and then presumably the high that we just saw just below about $23,000 here. So any sort of a closure basically here or lower will confirm that. And the reason why that is relevant is because then we go to the 3-day time frame and we pop in over here. We have hidden bearish divergence on the 3-day, which is nice, or maybe not nice, coming off that last closure that we did see actually yesterday, which I did not discuss on this. I typically don't even look at the 3-day time frame, but then marching on into the 5-day time frame, which is closing tomorrow night, there's going to be an opportunity for hidden bearish divergence of the 1, 2, 3 drive variety. Again, on a slightly higher time frame than the 2-day and the 3-day, thus implying that it does have a more powerful effect, and that'll be confirmed. If you want to confirm it on this current bar, you technically have to close below the low of the prior. Personally speaking, I do think it's a little bit more of a formality, assuming that Bitcoin just doesn't close tomorrow above $21,000. It can close right here and then trade below the low of this current 5-day. that would confirm it essentially and start to generate some targets to the downside as volatility starts to lift off to the upside right here. So I wanted to cover up on all of that, and then obviously as we get into the 5-day analysis yet again, which I know is probably getting boring at this point, but it is still relevant. You know, when we're talking about a 5-day signal, these things take like a month plus to play out. So you know, if you've been on this channel for a while now, you probably heard me repeat this ad fucking nauseum, and I know that it's annoying, but that's what a lot of trading is. You know, once you have a signal, it's like, okay, well, if we expect this to play out, you know, over the course of the next month plus, well, you have to be in tune with it as long as it's still active. So in this case, what is the signal? Well, it's a 5-day BBWP, which represents volatility, getting to extreme lows. And anytime that we do see it get to extreme lows, which I define as anything around 15 percentile or lower, the expansion phase from these extreme lows has led to an average move of 42.35%, done over the course of an average about just under 37 days, so about a month and a week. And if we were to look at the first standard deviation, which represents where we expect about 68% of the results to fall between, that would represent a range between about 35% all the way up to 49.5%. And the 5-day stochastic momentum oscillator has actually been fully correct on all the volatility expansion directions for the last 4 to 5 years here. Again, I do not expect this relationship to hold, you know, true for forever. Obviously, it's going to at some point be broken, but it has worked out yet again over here. I mean, a 5-day stochastic turning down as we got that volatility expansion right here. Well, I would say so far so good, as that was essentially marking off the highs at $25,000 before marching down to $18,500. Anyways, the reason why I bring this one out is because I want to reference a couple things here as we get into the next or close to the next period closure. And if we are looking at this from a average days perspective, we're getting close. We're actually getting quite close. If we start that signal from the mid of August, kind of where we're at right now, that would put us at the 30-day mark at the end of this period. So that means that coming into the end of September, we'll be between 35 to 40 days, which is pretty much right in alignment with that average days marker over here. And thus far, we have seen about a 27% move to the downside from the signal given to the current low. Is 27% the same thing as 35% on the lower end of the first standard deviation? No. 35%, if we were to kind of play around with numbers here, would obviously put Bitcoin, well, maybe not obviously, but but would put Bitcoin at about 16-ish thousand, let's say, so 16,500 to 16,000 bucks. Which kind of is reminiscent of the analysis over here for the lower end, or sorry, the average of the drawdowns that we have observed in the past. And so going back to it over here, you know, looking at this, it's kind of given us general targets if Bitcoin were to break the current lows, which again, that's still a big if. We can go over validation conditions soon enough here. And again, we're only talking about higher term timeframes on this particular video. Lower term timeframes, they can ebb and flow, obviously. What the fuck is that? No, oh, it's also sneeze. It's also sneezing. She's actually been really, really sick the last few days. It's like, I thought someone's like scratching at the door for some reason. I'm like, what the fuck is going on over here? Finn's gone wild yet again. No, it's just my girlfriend like blowing out her brains. Sweet. Well, can you blame her? She lives with me. Anyways, in this case over here, that'd be the lower end of the first deviation. Obviously, if it were to go all the way for the full 50%, I mean, I think that's kind of unlikely, to be honest with you. But that would be, you know, much lower, like, you know, 13-ish thousand, I suspect, to 12,000. All right, sweet, or well, maybe not sweet in this case, but yes, the reason why I bring this one up is because as long as the 5-day stochastic is still pointed down, this signal is still active. And this condition over here forecasts what would be needed for price action to close above in order to flip the stochastic to the upside. So coming into this next period, which again closes tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern time, if Bitcoin is below 21,800, this signal is still active. And well, we wait for the next update on that period, which the number obviously is, or it's very likely going to move lower and kind of give us another pivot to be mindful of on any sort of potential bounce. So I thought that was rather interesting. Anyways, moving on to the next few things. I did want to address the weekly for CME, which again is closing today. Any sort of a closure below 20,600 is going to turn the weekly stochastic oscillator to the downside yet again. And if we go back on over here, I thought there was just a few other, you know, interesting things that you might be mindful of. So if we go over to traditional markets, which of course, you know, there's a great correlation between the two. The weekly's closing today, and what do you know? It's a fucking weekly bearish engulfing dildo on the NASDAQ futures right here. And it'll also simultaneously confirm hidden bearish divergence on the weekly RSI. It's a little bit of a phantom drive right there, but that will be confirmed with any sort of a closure below last week's low, which is 11,921 by end of day here. So 13 hours, 22 minutes, and 34 seconds. At that point, probably have to be looking for another retest of the current lows, those June lows that we see over here. And, well, you know, are there lower targets after that? Perhaps yes, but we'll wait on that for now. Moving on to SPY futures, E-mini futures over here, same fucking thing. Same fucking thing, rejected right at the 55. And while it doesn't necessarily have the same sort of hidden bearish divergence in there just yet, it's not as weak as NASDAQ futures, but any sort of a move about $2 lower will do it. and sorry, need to close $2 lower. Nonetheless, this is like not a strong look on price action. And also we have the weekly jewel, which is, well, getting it. Is this his first tick down? Yeah, it's its first tick down here. So that all is a little bit concerning, a little bit concerning for the higher term time frames. Again, for the lower term time frames, really haven't made much comment on them. Yesterday, you know, I was kind of looking for a bit of sideways and maybe a try for a bounce. It was certainly sideways, but not much of a bounce right there. Pretty fucking weak. As far as the low term time frame ranges go, I don't really see anything that's different on price action as long as Bitcoin's especially below about 20,650 right here, kind of around that 0.5 retracement. As long as Bitcoin's below there, I just look at this as, you know, maybe a retest to range highs in the short term if Bitcoin were to do something like that. But overall, the higher term time frames, you know, still hold to fruition. So that's what I'm most interested in for right now. Anyways, other than that, I want to take a second to wish you the best as always. Take care, much love, and by the way, for all the people who have been asking about the new program, just going over straight up strategies and whatnot, we're likely going to release that next week. It's all done anyways, just like, you know, just kind of trying to find the right time frame because I'm going to be traveling and moving and all doing all this stuff. So I want to make sure that everything's nice and smooth. And yeah, anyways, with that said, much love, take care, and see you hopefully soon.